Bonita. Here are my guest stars, Shirley and Rachel, and I'm Tim.
Hi.
Hi! We're the guest stars now. Tim's taking over. Welcome to episode 12.
Yay.
Suckers. I screwed it up. I meant to say you're stuck with me suckers, and it was you're stuck with me suckers. Sorry.
See, this is why you're not the host.
He's a toast. He's got to get better. Gosh. Got to get better, Tim.
That's true.
Gotta get better.
That's very harder. But anyway, season 12, this is going to be awesome because I love this season. Honestly.
Me too.
I love the thing is, this season has some really, really good episodes, and I can't wait to talk about them. So guys, take it away.
Yeah, so we're gonna start with, obviously, I say this every freaking podcast. Like, let's start with the first episode. Like, we would start with anything else. So the first episode.
No, let's start with I don't know. Let's start with the best episode or something.
No, because then I
No,
lose track.
we gotta go in order. It'll be bad if we don't.
Honestly, every single episode I like in some way, shape, or form. So let's start off with Tonsil Trouble.
Aired March 12th, 2008.
After having his tonsils removed, Cartman contracts HIV, but when he finds out that people no longer care about AIDS, he looks for a cure. Kyle finds it funny that Cartman has AIDS, so Cartman finds a way to give Kyle AIDS to settle the score between them.
I love this episode.
So, do we want to start with talking about the HIV positives or the HIV negatives?
Right.
I'm not just sure, I'm HIV positive.
Right.
I love that running joke, honestly.
Yeah, the best part is when Kyle gets really, really pissed at him.
Yeah, that is the best part. It's not even the joke, it's how Kyle reacts to it.
Because Kyle is so funny this whole episode. Yeah.
He goes to, like, deafening silence, and he says, like, that's not funny, AIDS isn't funny. Like, they're, like, just so straightforward with it.
Yeah, I gotta say, though, that, like, laughing at Cartman after he got AIDS is, like, the most relatable Kyle has ever been to me. Like,
That's one of the funny things about Cartman, because it's like, he always makes these sort of really sick jokes, and the writers are just like, let's obviously say he's not funny, because it's completely unethical to just find it unproblematically funny, but we're gonna laugh at it anyway, because, it is fucking funny sometimes.
Actually, this is kind of the season of Cartman torture.
Yeah,
that's why I love it.
right, that's why it's so good.
Great.
Yeah.
That's why this season. Gosh, they need to do more Cartman torture. It would be better.
Yeah.
More Cartman torture where you actually aren't supposed to sympathize with him, so not stuff like him getting beaten up by PC Principal or everyone destroying his stuff. Stuff where it's like, he's getting the shit kicked out of him and it being really
And he deserves it, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's the best.
This is I never thought I'd find myself laughing about an 8-year-old with AIDS, but here we are, South Park.
Right.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, pretty much.
I kind of like how they AIDS was a really big epidemic and everything in the 80s. Everybody knows that, and it's kind of it's not really talked about, and it's still a really big rampant disease, but now it's actually like it's not cured, but it's
it's manageable.
Easier.
Yeah.
We know the causes of it, so it's more preventable than it was. So, I mean, perks of having AIDS in the modern day, it's kind of more manageable, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah. You know something I noticed at the end? You know how there's a bit where it's like they just fly into Africa and they're like, good news, we worked out how to save people from AIDS. You have to inject money into them.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
They're all starving and poor, like about to die.
Yeah. It's also really good because it's like they're kind of saying, they're showing how irrelevant it is when you get really, really good solutions to really problematic diseases, and then you realise, hold on, this isn't really going to affect the third world because it's too expensive.
Right.
It's kind of look at the bigger picture like that, yeah.
Well, no, I shouldn't say funny, but it's like interesting. In the Book of Mormon, there's a line in the very last song, "Tomorrow Is a Latter Day." Americans have already found a cure for AIDS, but they're saving it for a latter day. And to me, I'm like, God damn it, that could be really true, because there was like an insulin incident years ago where this like special type of insulin was like marketed way above the price of what it should have been, and it was just like the most unethical piece of shit that they could have ever done. And I'm like, God damn, what if that's happening now? What if like they really can like cure stuff?
Yeah. This episode has a lot of really good running jokes, like the whole thing where people keep thinking Kyle and Carmen are gay lovers, and then
The thing about that is though, there's a bit where Carmen's just like, I've sneaked into the Carl's room loads of times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then I also love Carmen's whole thing where he like hates Jimmy Buffett and he keeps getting him assigned to his parties or whatever.
That's the only thing I relate to Carmen on.
Yeah. Honestly, I've never heard of it, but then again, that's, you know.
Yeah, you're in England, right?
I love it because what Carmen says, like, the only people who like Jimmy Buffett are frat boys and drunk Southern chicks, you know? And I'm like, that's true. I live in the South with a lot of drunk white women, and they love Jimmy Buffett. They love him so much. I love the AIDS burger in Paradise.
Yes.
I like the fake Jimmy Buffett music more than like the actual Jimmy Buffett music.
Let's be honest, though. Basically, once something is spoofed by South Park, it's always better than the actual thing.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
For actual fun, Game of Thrones, Al Gore, actual politics, Poker Face, Boom Boom Pow. Basically, just take your pick, and it's always basically just anything is better with South Park, pretty much.
Trump.
Yeah.
Essentially,
Well, yeah. At least that Trump is fictional.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Deafening silence across the America.
All right,
At
guys.
least they don't believe it when he says it's rigged.
Yeah. All right. Well, are we HIV positive that we want to go to the next episode?
Yeah.
I'm HIV positive.
Okay.
That we're ready to move on. And we're gonna move on to Britney's new look.
Aired on March 19th, 2008.
Boys try to get a photo of pop singing train wreck Britney Spears to cash in on the news reporting her latest social faux pas. But when Britney survives a suicide attempt that leaves her with most of her head missing, the boys soon discover the real reason behind Britney's downfall and try to save her from further exploitation. Now this episode it's one of the fans' least favorites.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have a fun fact for this one. When Nostalgia Critic did a list of the top 11 best South Park episodes, this was number 10. And then when Phantom Strider did his list of the top 10 worst, this was number 2. So
yeah,
it's really contentious.
polarizing.
Yeah.
Captain Trey actually said that themselves. They said you're either on the train or you're off the train, and I feel like that's so true for this episode because I'm kind of like I'm on the train, but I almost missed the train, so my foot is caught in the door.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those ones where I like it better rewatching it than I did the first time around. Because thinking about it, there's a lot of stuff they do that's kind of really true because it's like a lot of people, especially back when this aired, would have cared a hell of a lot more about celebrities than they would about politics or about the lives of ordinary people. Like that whole thing about Butters being caught being a squirrel, that sort of thing. People wouldn't really care about that if there's a big massive media scandal going on with so and so.
Yeah. I think the whole reason this episode is so polarizing and it's hard for people to get on is because when it was made, the whole big thing was making fun of Britney Spears and she's having her meltdown and everyone wants her to kill herself and stuff. And this episode is so sympathetic to her. It's really not digging on her at all. And I think people are kind of disappointed in that. They wanted South Park to go after her, but they didn't.
I do find
I think people also have a problem with it when they don't realize that they're kind of on Britney's side, which is understandable that you wouldn't get it because, it's a very graphic episode. She shoots her head off, But honestly, at the root of it, they're just kind of like, God, can we just give her a break? This is when she shaved her head. This was she was just all over the news. And I still feel bad for the girl. This was at the time of Leave Britney Alone.
Yeah, that's me.
I feel like she was my idol when I was tiny,
Yeah. I remember when one of the things Phantom Strider said he hated about it is he said something like watching Britney's half blown off head gargling for 22 minutes isn't that funny, and I just sort of thought rewatching it actually the humour of this is really varied. You have the making fun of the TMZ stalkers, making fun of people thinking that she's lip syncing, not giving people credit for the talent they have. The whole thing about I do love that sort of Wickerman-y cultist thing where everyone just literally wants her to die.
Yeah.
I love that they all sing don't hate And it's so sad because at the end of the day, we all are guilty of it, and that's why Kyle and Stan doing it because we all do this. Any celebrity.
Mm-hmm. And this whole episode is a parody of this short story called The Lottery about this town who like has to sacrifice someone each year so like their crops will grow and stuff like that. And this is kind of a modern take on that. And
I thought it was like The Wicker Man, but yeah.
But it's stuff like that. It was that story specifically, but like
there's a lot of horror stories.
it's that concept. And I do like that you brought up the Stan and Kyle thing. I thought it was really funny how they kind of like begrudgingly resign themselves to like singing with him, like I guess we have to do this now.
It's kind of funny though. It's like I feel like it's kind of mature for South Park to sort of say, yeah, we're going to do satire, we're going to make fun of people, but you kind of have to realize you can only go so far before you're generally actually hurting someone. And it's like Britney Spears isn't like a Trump type or any politician type who actually wants to hurt people. She wants to be famous. She wants people to like her music. So it's a really different situation to the people they usually make fun of. Mm-hmm. So I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty mature of them to do, really. Yeah. So I can see why people dislike this episode, but I think it's pretty good because there's a lot of sort of clever humor in there. There's a lot of like mature acknowledgement of when they, when even they go too far. Yeah. And it's gruesome, and I can understand people not liking it, but we'll get to an episode later on this season that I've had more of a problem with that with, or at least haven't a problem with that.
I think this episode's very different. It's very different South Park feel, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, same. It's a very dark episode even for South Park, but it's really good at being dark. It actually understands why it's doing this, and it does it in a really clever way.
Yeah.
It's good at being dark because when it needs to be serious, it's serious. It doesn't try and shoehorn in, jokes that make it, satire or whatever.
Yeah. Or when they do
it's
the
serious,
jokes.
It stays
or when they do the jokes, they kind of make sure that it's like it's a joke that you can kind of take seriously. Like the whole at the same time, that bit of them sort of charging and doing the chant and snapping over the photos, it's like it's obviously satirizing the whole situation, and it's quite funny for that, but it's also quite serious because it's like you know how much damage they're doing to her psychologically, and how much they're trying to kill her, and how awful that is.
So yeah, Brittany, if you're out there, and if you're listening, we still love you. I love Give Me Baby One More Time is a banger, and I love you for that.
Okay, alright, you want to go on?
Also, we'll move on. I'm not the biggest fan of Britney, but no one should get, killed for the songs here, right? Except maybe Chris Brown, he can go fuck himself.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, we'll move on. We'll move on to another a really big fan favorite, Major Boobage.
Aired March 26, 2008.
In this homage to the 1981 film Heavy Metal, the boys worry when Kenny becomes addicted to sniffing cat urine in order to get high. Meanwhile, Cartman takes in all of South Park's cats, and Kyle's dad relapses into being addicted to sniffing cat urine. So, fun fact about this episode, this is the first time, and I think the most recent time, that Matt was credited as a writer for the episode. He hasn't been credited since, season 4 or 5 as a writer, an actual writer, and I don't think he's been credited since. We all know that he writes, but Trey, physically types it out. But anyway, I can see why they haven't had 2 writers.
Yeah, I have another fun fact for this one. Cheesy is actually based on, a factual kind of, an actual kind of getting hallucinogenics.
Really?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I think I looked this up a while back, and it involves, fermenting the cat piss instead of just, having piss on your face, but it's actually based on sort of real things that people have done.
I wonder how many people have tried it, honestly. I wonder how many people have tried sniffing cat urine after this episode.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite parts is when Gerald is relapsing and he's like, oh, I'm just gonna do it one time to get it out of my system, and he's going on and on. He's like, I haven't done it in 10 years, but he still has all the equipment set up in his basement.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
And he hasn't done it in 10 years, and Kyle is 9 or 10. I mean, he must have been fucked up at the time.
Right. He had to get it together for Kyle.
I also love Sheila at the end going, don't touch me.
Yeah.
That bit is so funny. I think that's one of my 2 favorite bits of the episode. The bit where he's obviously completely collapsed into this whole thing, and he's just standing there desperately trying to defend himself, and everyone just knows he's so guilty.
Yeah.
And my other favorite bit is the bit where Kenny's sniffing the flowers, and he's see, he's just getting high on life. He's getting so high on life. Dude, he's getting super wasted on life.
Yeah, I love that part. They're like, Kenny, no!
A lot of people like this episode for good reason, for the obvious like heavy metal parody and the style. But more funny than the heavy metal stuff is the events like right after when it switches into real time, like when Gerald and Kenny are fighting each other and Joan is like, she's mine, you little asshole. Like that's so
Yeah. You know, one of the other things that's funny about the way that they do cheesing, it's kind of funny because at the same time as sort of showing like something really kind of graphic and silly, they're also really showing that, you know, drug legislation and the sensationalism over it can get really kind of, you know, overblown, because it's like you have the whole Fox thing about your kids could be cheesing right now.
Yeah.
Like, they are just saying stuff like, hey, I'm really effing tripping out on cheesing, or whatever it is.
Yeah, the whole news report was really funny.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Alright, I want to talk about the Cartman storyline a little bit with the whole, where he's hiding the cast. And I loved how they really they weren't subtle at all about it being like an Anne Frank parody. I love when Cartman first brings his cat into the attic. He's like, here, Mr. Kid, you have to be quiet. Write this diary.
I love this episode. It's probably not. This was rated in, I think, the top 15. It was the top 15 around the 15th anniversary of South Park and everything, when Comedy Central did like a big countdown list of Matt and Trey discussed it and everything. It's really cool how they took time, and I'm going to talk about this. It's really cool how they honestly took a lot of time to work on this. They had planned it out further, obviously, for the animation style. So it goes to show that they can write something very well and do it well if they're willing to, you know, take the time and effort to do it.
Right.
Unlike season 20. Okay,
Yeah.
done.
Well, let's be honest, it's not an episode of Podcasa Bonita unless you mention season 20.
And yeah.
Actually, I wouldn't know, but...
Alright, want to go on?
Yeah, this was fun. Okay, the next episode is Canada on Strike.
Aired April 2nd, 2008.
The head of the World Canadian Bureau, nicknamed WGA, leads the country into a strike over residual money made by the internet. Meanwhile, the South Park boys try to turn Butters into the latest viral video star in order to make money to give to Canada.
I have a trivia piece for this one.
Okay.
Yeah. The guy who made What Wasn't the Butt actually sued them for it, and then they ended up getting off. They managed to get away with it because, like, fair use law sort of indicates
Really?
that parodies are allowed that kind of breath.
Oh,
See,
I didn't
honestly,
know
I
that.
didn't know that video existed. I thought South Park had made it up.
No, I
Like,
thought
totally,
that
I thought it was...
they had asked him for permission to use the video, because I think he said that on I saw him. He was on Touch.0, I think, and he said that the South Park people asked him if they could use it, but I don't know. Maybe he's not.
I think what ended up happening was, well, maybe I'm not sure if he asked for it and then they kind of annoyed him with it or something. But
okay.
basically, the gist of it is there was like a big case brought against them that they won.
Right.
I actually have a whole lot to say about this one in terms of the background, because it's kind of a parody of the 2007 to 8 writer's strike.
Mm-hmm.
And the gist of what happened was that a lot of writers sort of went on strike and wouldn't produce the scripts for new episodes. And you had a lot of shows doing like reruns or sort of not doing new content. I think if I remember right, Family Guy held up a season because they didn't have, they weren't prepared to write the script for it. And there's two interesting things like South Park related with this. One of them is that I think a few months before the strike they had signed a deal with Viacom that set up the online airing thing. That I'm not sure if they still have it. I wouldn't know because it's never been allowed in the UK. But they used to have a thing where you could watch the episodes online, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's true. That was before they joined with Hulu.
Yeah, with SouthParkStudios.com.
Yeah. And the other thing to mention is that as far Trey and Matt definitely, and as far as I know, most of the other writing crew aren't part of the WGA.
No, they're not part of the union. Which is why they were like bummed. Just like, damn it, we can't go on strike because we're not part of the union.
Yeah, because I know that they said in the commentary that they wanted to, just because they didn't want to write the new episodes.
Yeah.
It's not because they felt
one other thing
cheap.
I've got to complain about this as a Brit. They gave Gordon Brown the wrong accent. He's not English, he's Scottish. Sorry, I get a little hung up when they
I can see why, I mean.
Yeah. I know it's not an important thing, but it's like I get hung up on it.
Right.
Yeah.
See, my favorite part of this episode is probably everybody's favorite part. It seems like it would be so dated, but I ended up watching it and enjoying it. The whole YouTube star thing was tolerant because even though those are old as shit, even though they're so old, like, everybody still remembers them.
I know.
Everybody still remembers Numa Numa and Chocolate Rain Guy and Season Panda.
It's funny because they were all popular, like, when I was growing up, and it's like, it was such a nostalgia thing, looking at them all, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I think the thing is, what's interesting is they kind of, the way that they sort of have all these viral videos, they kind of, and the whole theoretical money thing, it's interesting because definitely back when this was made, I think for quite a few years afterwards, you wouldn't have the YouTube, the YouTube system where, like, you get paid for videos. They didn't have monetizing for a long time.
Right.
So with most of these videos, it's like if you made a viral video, then everyone's going to share it, and then that's it. It just disappears into the ether. You don't get anything for it.
Right.
And the fact that they kind of draw that to attention, I know they sort of sneeze over it, that little bit at the end where Carl sort of goes into like a really long-winded and kind of fast-spoken speech. That's basically what they're saying. It's like, if you're creating content, surely it should matter, that you're actually creating the content and getting acknowledged for it and getting money for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like how they. Yeah. It's kind of cool how they, Kyle in his speech, which I love. I love his speech. How it's like so wordy and just.
Yeah. I get where it's like there's just this brief pause, and instead just like, yeah.
Yeah. But I love how in the speech he basically says he's like, it'd be cool for us to have a way where we can get paid for our content on the internet, and someday there will be. And it's weird looking back. It's like we have that now.
Like YouTube stars legit get paid now.
Yeah.
You need a shit ton of money too.
Yeah. I mean the thing is, the other interesting thing is that it's ironically not really so much the viral videos that kind of benefit from that sort of thing. It's the people who produce a lot of people who produce a lot of different content, who produce a lot of videos. It's like you can never have on terrestrial TV sort of review shows that rely on fair use, and you couldn't really have someone like I Hate Everything or Nostalgia Critic who needs that sort of fair use protection and also monetizing from companies, and you wouldn't have let's players on TV really, because
thank goodness there aren't let's players on TV. Thank God. There's already too much crap on TV. But what's really cool? I like going back and watching and seeing things that South Park has talked about that were controversial issues back then that are less controversial now. Like I remember when we went back and watched season 1 with the Big Gay Al episode.
Oh yeah.
And now we have gay marriage legalized in the States. That's it's really cool going back and watching that and be like, wow, it's not like South Park changed anything, but it's cool seeing it develop over the years.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think this one reminds me a lot of Christian rock hard, because that was kind of saying, downloads aren't anything to be scared of, because these people are kind of going to get money no matter what happens. There's still going to be a market, and I think it's a bit different here because it's personally I like it more because you have the YouTube parodies and you have all the stuff about how you have all the stuff about how TV is kind of running a lot of reruns and stuff. Oh, actually, on the point of that, the bit where they just randomly turn on Family Guy and they come, it's just like, no, we don't have to resort to that.
Yeah. That was a good callback.
Yeah, there's actually a reason for that. Yeah, the reason they did that actually is because there's a thing that happened. I kind of looked this up, so I know. But what happened was basically when a bunch of people got fired by their networks for not writers, other people involved with shows got fired by the networks. Stephen McFarlane basically says instead of the producers getting punished for it, instead you should get the writers to fund the dismissals, so to help fund them for getting fired.
Wow.
Damn.
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing, one last thing I want to say, it's quite interesting how they do it for me because they at the same time, even though it's like a strike and it's a really kind of political thing in that way, and they make fun of sort of mismanagement of the strike, they also kind of make fun of it as when nationalism goes too far and people are just like, we're going to stand up for our country and be really proud and shit, and how when you do that you can sometimes just have absolutely no plan and then just end up doing stuff that ruins the lives of people in your country.
Yeah.
At the United States next time, Tim.
Yeah.
Tweet about the United States. Just be real here.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm ready to move on. How about you?
My one last last thing I want to say about this episode is that my favorite part is the end where they're like putting the guy out on the iceberg and like, I'm not your friend, buddy. I'm not your buddy guy.
I'm not your buddy.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's move on to Eek a Penis.
Aired April 9th, 2008.
While Mrs. Garrison goes on a chance to while Mrs. Garrison goes on a tirade to reverse her sex change and become Mr. Garrison again, Cartman becomes a strict teacher whose unorthodox methods are needed in an inner city school. God, I wish I could talk. I actually like that part so much more. Like, it's no secret that a lot of fans have had trouble with the Mrs. Garrison sex change plot,
including me.
This is probably my least favorite episode of the group, but not even by, because I think the Cartman storyline, the parody of Stand and Deliver, is just so funny.
Yeah.
I think it's because it's pretty much Stand and Deliver, just reversed.
I've never heard of Stand and Deliver, honestly, because it's like, it's kind of, it's an American movie from the 80s that's I've never heard of, to be honest, but it's still really funnily done. It's quite funny, the point they make about how how hypocritical it is to just let people get away with cheating when really they should accept the consequences. I do love that bit where he's like, okay, repeat after me. I misinterpreted the rules.
Yeah. And I love his like catchphrase where he's like, how do I reach these keys? He's like a Mexican accent.
Honestly, have you guys seen I know you haven't seen Stand and Deliver, have you?
I have, yeah. But it like a while ago.
Well, if you've seen this episode, you've seen Stand and Deliver.
Yeah.
There's like no different at all.
I saw a clip from it because I asked my friend about it, and I was like, I'm not sure if that's a parody of something, and then he's like, yeah, it's a parody of this. And I watched the negative times and negative equals a positive bit. I haven't really seen anything else from it, but it's like, I get the joke. Oh,
yeah.
One other thing I want to say, bit of trivia, the whole penis mouse thing is actually really reminiscent of this of a subplot from this episode of Red Dwarf where one of the characters makes his own penis because he doesn't want to be classified as a woman.
Oh, okay. The weirdest part of this episode is when like the penis mouse is running away from Mr. Garrison, and then it stops and it's like having a duet with itself in the moonlight. Like the mouse and the penis are both singing. It's so weird.
That is a parody. A lot of people don't know that is a parody of the song "Somewhere Out There" from An American Tale, which is that movie with the little mouse named
Yeah.
He's an immigrant.
Yeah.
So that's a parody of that song.
But I wasn't sure which one.
But that scene just by itself is so bizarre, and but it was so funny too. Like, what the fuck am I watching? But I was like weirdly into it. Like,
I gotta say though, I do kind of have to cast a negative point against this because it doesn't have a line as good as "Brighton, you are now officially a man." What makes you say that? You have absolutely no control over your penis.
See, it's so funny that one scene with the mouse singing to itself is so that's a polarizing joke. It's kind of like the Lion King 2 joke in season 19 because so few people, like a few minority of people will understand what they're parodying, and my animation loving ass totally I'm like, that's spiteful. That's spiteful from An American Tale.
I didn't get that was the joke, but I got the idea of what they were doing. It was kind of a Don Bluth parody, and it was definitely funny. Yeah.
It is funny. That's kind of all I have to say about that episode.
Me too.
Are you ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right. Next is Overlogging.
Aired April 16th, 2008.
In this homage to John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, the Marsh family heads west after the internet connection goes down nationwide. Gosh, there are so many parodies.
Yeah.
Already.
It's like this is a season of beating the shit out of Cartman and parodies.
Yeah.
Right now, those two things 100%.
Yeah, if it's done right, which this is really done right. This episode has no joke. I still, to this day, I still think it is the most morbid single scene in any episode of South Park. I'm so baffled. I still watch it kind of with Randy getting slimed.
That scene is horrid.
It was a ghost.
It's so funny, but so gross.
Worse than the Butter's creepy goo in season 16.
Yeah.
That to me, that's so much worse. And
even
oh my gosh.
Even Matt and Trey in the commentary said we can't believe they let us put that in the air. That's disgusting.
This is gross. What's wrong with television?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. As long as nudity isn't shown, as long as you don't show a female nipple, you're good to go. You're
Right.
but
this episode's super funny because I love the whole joke where how much we rely on the internet and we all like go and we become Amish people without it. It's kind of true, honestly. And I love the joke.
If my internet's down for like 2 hours, I'm done.
I like freak out, yeah. But I love the joke at the end where Kyle fixes the internet by unplugging it and plugging it back in because when my internet doesn't work, this is the first thing I try.
I don't think it's true, but I would love to think that that's like a parody of the IT crap with the whole thing of, hello IT, have you tried turning off and on again?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, actually, to be honest, I'm mostly just referencing those.
That's always the first thing I do, though, so that made me laugh.
I know, I look for parodies and shit. I look for references to shit where they're not there every single time I watch shows.
Mm-hmm.
I love you. It's always seeing patterns of things that aren't there.
Yeah. See, I like while we were rewatching this season, Rachel sent me a post, and it's the scene where Shelley and her boyfriend Amir meet and everything, and it's totally
it's like her online boyfriend.
It's totally awkward, and Rachel goes like, "This is gonna be us," and I'm like, "I'm so insulted." By that.
Yeah, I know. You mean, I know exactly what you mean.
My feeling.
Like, to be honest, even for me, that's like meeting people on Skype actually.
Yeah. To clarify, we're talking because me and Shirley have never met in person, so that's what the whole joke is.
Mostly because we're like thousands of miles away.
Right.
But it's not gonna stop our love.
Where are you from, by the way? I don't just realized I don't know.
Oh, I'm from Georgia, the shithole of Georgia.
Illinois.
Oh. And I'm from Cambridgeshire.
Okay, cool.
Really? I thought you were from Liberia. God damn.
Liberia.
That accent.
You know what other line I love? I love when the Martians are like just about to leave South Park. They're like looking for internet, and I think it's Gerald. He's like, if you find internet, will you let us know? And Randy's like, how? There's no internet. He laughs so hard.
I love the other bit where it's like, they're like, how do we find out about the news before the internet? TV!
I'm like, oh yeah.
My first thought was actually like newspapers or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny. This episode is still super, super relevant. Like even now, even now more than ever. Like because we have smartphones and everything. So
I'm gonna say, internet camp sounds a hell of a lot like internment camp.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, it does.
They did that on purpose.
I just like the way they didn't say it was internet camp because then that would just like completely seal the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot about my favorite scene. My favorite scene in this episode by far is when they have like they have these I guess you would call it it's their puppet show version of a computer and everything.
Oh yeah.
And like, make up porn and everything, and it's just like stick figures throwing up on each other. Like that is so funny to me.
Yeah, you know what? The other thing is, I'm slightly surprised they didn't put Al Gore in this episode because then they can make the joke about who invented the internet.
Yeah, I like this episode. This is one of my favorites from this season, but I think we're gonna move on.
I have a lot of favorites in this season, but yeah, that's probably one of my favorites as well. And we get to move on to another one of my favorites.
Yeah, Super Fun Time.
Aired April 23rd, 2008.
While the kids are on an educational field trip into a living museum, Carmen forces Butters to sneak away from the class to go to an amusement center located next door. While they are there, the living museum's cast and the rest of the class are taken hostage by criminals. This is an episode, like one of the few in a long time in like this big stretch where it has like nothing political really about it at all. It's just totally like slice of life episode, you know?
Yeah. I have a little bit of trivia. I think this is one of the ones where on the DVD they have like the storyboard breakdown as they go through the episode.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and if I remember right, I think it was originally called like The Living Village or something. It wasn't originally called Super Fun Time.
See, I knew they were actually planning on doing an episode like this for a long time. They just never did, and they finally did. Season 12. It took them long enough.
I think that explains it actually, because it really feels more like an early season episode. It feels a bit like Weight Game 4000 with sort of, you have Stan, Carl, and Wendy sort of doing a bunch of stuff to try and solve a problem, and Cartman and Butters kind of, just doing crazy schemes.
Yeah. And I love the whole joke where like the people at the museum, the Linden Museum, like won't break character, and it's super annoying, especially because they're like in this emergent.
When the guy just pushes into the wall and it's just like, and it just says never break character.
Oh yeah. And then when the guy breaks character and he gets shot by one of the other people, but and I love the joke at the end where Stan like has to make this huge sacrifice by like pretending to be, and he looks super dorky in front of his girlfriend, and he's like, oh, like Wendy, look away.
It's just like, you're really brave out there, Stan, even if you didn't look like a big dog.
Yeah.
I actually didn't think I would like this episode as much as I do. I always forget. I always think it's an earlier episode, kind of like what you were saying earlier, Tim. I always think it's in an earlier season. I'm like, God, when is Super Fun Time? And it's pretty late in the game, but yeah, I like it. I like it more than I think I do. That happens with a lot of episodes. I usually go like, oh, it's this episode. It's not my favorite. But then I watch it and then I enjoy it. So
It's pretty cool. I think the other thing is I do love the fact that even though Cartman and Butters break the rules, they don't really get in trouble for it. It's just that they don't solve the situation. It's Stan, Carl, and Wendy who do by pretty much adapting to really dumb rules in a really dumb situation.
Mm-hmm.
And like logic.
I like how hardcore Butters is in this episode about how he's like refusing to let go of Cartman's hand.
Yeah.
I love it's so funny, like the second Butters like collapses on the bus, like the credits roll, like it was like perfect timing, like it's a joke.
Yeah, that's like a fucking perfect joke, honestly, where he just comes on and it's just like, teacher, my partner is back on the bus.
And he like cracks up.
Yeah. It's just perfectly it's almost like the snapback equivalent of a mic drop at the end of a really good routine. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Alright, well, I don't really have much to say about that one.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how when they're this, like, I guess apolitical, there's not really a whole lot to say about the issue. Yeah. So, we can move on.
Although I do like the whole joke where like they're not bank robbers or anything. They just robbed a Burger King, and like he's like, I want my share, and it's like just a Burger King bag.
I love the bit where he flicks through the burger like it's money.
Yeah.
And the other thing to mention is like if you're gonna rob a fast food restaurant, why a Burger King? I mean, at least make it a Five Guys or a Wendy's, so it actually matters.
Five Guys. I would rate the shit out of Five Guys.
Yeah. I can't really speak for Wendy's because they don't have them over here, but Five Guys is good shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, even though I didn't have much to say about that episode, I have a lot to say about this next coming episode and the episode after that. And the next episode is the China Prob Rim.
It aired October 8th, 2008.
Cartman and Butters invade a P.F. Chang's after Cartman thinks the Chinese will take over America. Meanwhile, Stan, Kyle, and Kenny are traumatized after seeing the latest Indiana Jones movie.
Okay, I love the part at the beginning where Cartman's like rolling in his sleep and his mom's like, "Sweetie, are you having nightmares about the Chinese again?"
Mrs. Carpenter is honestly just the best part. Because, like, she puts up with so much shit.
Yeah.
See, that makes her a terrible mom. But also,
I'm gonna say something else I just realized I should say. I just realized I probably should have opened this podcast with, "Oh, hello, friends."
Yeah.
Oh God.
See, sometimes I forget why that's not the part where people get upset about this episode, because this episode is not very, very popular, and I forgot why until I watched it.
I just
and
remember
the reason
trivia.
why. What?
It's trivia. I think this was one of Matt Trey's favourites, and they actually said that it was inspired by Matt saying about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull that it was like a rape.
Yeah.
See, that's where people have.
That's the storyline that I'm not quite on board with.
I agree with it because the thing is, I feel like the joke could have worked where it's like, oh, it was like a rape if the actual acts of rape weren't depicted so brutally.
Yeah.
Because then you're making it seem like, oh, this movie is as traumatizing as an actual rape. It's like, no, it's fucking not. Stop. Like, that's not even funny at that point. I hate it, and it makes me mad.
Yeah, same. You know what would have worked? If the first scene, if they'd done it like they did the first scene, where it's like they're just looking at the thing, they're going, don't want to yell that too loudly, but you know.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that, it's like they, if they had just done it that every time it kind of switched onto the focus and like you hear screaming and shit and they don't actually see it, that kind of that might have worked better because
I still think that's too much. I think this could have worked. I like the opening scene in the theater where it's like they're raping Indiana Jones. That could have worked, I think, but
actually really works quite well. It's just the rest of it isn't. It's kind of. I feel like they go too far.
It's very distasteful. I don't like. Because I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to say that all these rape scenes are how we felt watching this movie, and they're trying to go on about how bad it was. But I really just don't see how disliking a movie is the same as being raped.
It's really not. And there's the biggest problem is because it's so graphically depicted as a rape, and they're trying to make it seem like it's the same feeling, which it's not. I'm sorry. I felt really shitty about movies too. I felt raped by season 20's finale. Don't even try, Matt and Trey. Don't even try me, Matt and Trey. Don't even try.
I felt that about Skank Hunt and Wieners Out. So obviously.
But
no. The other thing is, King of the Crystal Skull is not good, but it's not even that bad.
Is it really that bad? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the thing is, just forget it. It's not like if this was Phantom Menace, I think it would be not excusable, but like almost it would be close to being understandable. Whereas with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it's just like it's not a great movie, but you're taking it too far, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The only thing I like about this story is like the boys' emotional reactions to it. I think that part of it was handled really well. And I like how Kyle specifically is the one who like has to come forward because he's always been the one that experiences guilt the strongest, and I totally believe that about Kyle.
Yeah.
And I really like their emotional story in this.
The other thing I kind of like about it, I do like the fact that it almost comes across to them sort of saying people who bear witness to rape really suffer. Not as much as the rapist, but sort of it's similarly traumatizing. But that gives you the position to be able to sort of go and say, to go to them and sort of say, to testify to the police that what happened, and actually try and help the person who suffered.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just hate that they're trying to make a movie.
Oh yeah, I get it.
Actual rape at this level, they're trying really hard and they're being serious. Like, oh, it's that bad. It's like, no, it's not that fucking bad.
Yeah.
Stop it. Piss me.
Yeah, it's like.
Don't even compare the two. That's what bothers me. They had done it where it wasn't as intense as it was.
Yeah.
Like the scenes itself don't bother me that much. It's the fact, it's the comparison between actual rape.
It's what they're trying to say that's really, really bad, I think.
So this is actually my least favorite.
I think what they're trying to say about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is really bad. What they're trying to say about like rape as an act is not as bad because at least they're trying to sort of say, people.
I think they're trying to say it's like the worst thing that can happen to you, which is kind of true, but like they're also saying this movie is like the worst thing that can happen to you, and you're like, no, it's not.
The other thing is, so I remember first time watching this, I think this was probably my least favorite of the season, but rewatching it, that whole subplot with Cartman and Butters, I think is actually a lot better than I remembered.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that's the saving grace of this episode because I thought that's why people were mad at it because it was like racist, but they were. You're laughing at the people who are racist, and that's just totally clear.
Yeah. I think my favorite part is when they're like trying to bug the actual Chinese people, and they're like, "Oh, we're a fellow Chinese people," and they're like, "No, you're not." And Carmen's like, "Oh my God, they're onto us."
I don't know when they just sort of say to each other like in Chinese, is this guy serious? That's pretty good as well.
Right. And I love the whole gag.
Shooting people in the dick.
Yeah.
That's pretty as well. Yeah. I love how Carmen kind of learns his lesson. Don't shoot people in the dick.
Yeah, that's what he took away from that.
If you're Carmen, racism is fine, but don't shoot people in the dick.
Right. And then the one last thing I have to say, which is really just kind of stupid, but it's something that I noticed. It's the part where, at the very beginning, when Kyle's, like, crying about the rape, and Stan's, like, trying to console him, he's like, "There's nothing we can do, Kyle." He sounds, like, so much like Randy. It's crazy. I'm like, oh, shit. I don't know why, but I thought that was cool.
Well, on that note, I think we're going to move on to my absolute favorite, one of my favorite episodes of the series. Breast cancer show ever.
Aired October 15th, 2008.
Wendy is fed up with Cartman's jokes when he makes fun of her report on breast cancer and challenges him to a fight. This is so satisfying. I don't think anybody hates this episode. It is so good.
I love this episode because Cartman gets fucking murdered. Like, he dies.
It's brilliant. It is so satisfying, It's like, the other thing is, I think my favorite part, though, isn't even Wendy beating up Cartman. It's the bit just before that where Principal Victoria speaks to him.
Yes.
Victoria speaks to her, and she's like, cancer is pure evil, and you should always be be able to sort of fight back. You should always fight back against it and never let it make you feel powerless, because that is such an amazing message. It's like, because I
have actually something to say about that when you're done.
Yeah. Oh. The thing is, I've had a lot, like, friends and relatives who have cancer, and it's just, that is such an empowering message to hear, because it's so good of them to sort of, you know, to sort of make this out as, you know, this is something that needs to be taken seriously, even though it's like, even when we joke about things this serious, you should never take it as us being, you know, bigoted hags who hate, you know, who want to make people miserable. Mm-hmm. It's because we want to show there are things in this world that are really awful and really evil, and you have to fight. And if we're going to depict them, we have to depict them. We have to do it hard.
Depicted as Cartman.
That's what I was going to talk about. See, even though my mom is a breast cancer survivor, it's been 15 years since she had breast cancer. And I love it. I love how it's also it's inspiring for cancer survivors. But at the same, it's also, I mean, obviously it wasn't, this speech wasn't written for what I'm about to talk about, but it pertains to it. Fucking neo-Nazis and the alt-right. I'm like, okay, the reason with Nazis, you can't do it. You beat them up. You can't like say, oh, they have different opinions. No, you just gotta fucking fight them.
Yeah.
Like, I love it.
I agree.
I love it.
I agree. Alright, this episode was really good because I love seeing Cartman trying to get out of fighting Wendy because it really highlights what a fucking pussy Cartman is.
I love the bit where he's like trying to convince Stan that he's gonna beat the crap out of her, and then he pukes up his underwear. That's brilliant.
That's what I think that might be one of my favorite parts because like he pukes it up in the middle of the conversation, and then he's like, "Oh, that's where I put those."
And how she was like, "I'm going to shove your ass down your throat and make you eat your underwear." That's like one of the best fucking nonsensical insults ever.
Wendy's such a badass.
This episode is totally pro Wendy. Like, there's nothing bad about Wendy in this whole thing. It's just Wendy all the way.
Yeah.
Totally.
To be honest, I just generally love Wendy as a character, but the thing is that this is just the best goddamn episode.
I know. It's so nice.
Should I say the breast episode?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is really. There's a really.
I feel like they probably could have called this episode Breast Episode Ever, and we would still love it.
Yeah. There's a really tiny kind of scene that I fucking love, like, just for me being a total, like, super fan, is the part where the goth kids go up to Stan and they, like, kind of antagonize him, like, hey, you're a jock, right? You're supposed to, like, you can't let some guy beat up on your woman. And I love that, because, like, I said it in an earlier episode that I like to think that Stan and the goth kids, like, still hang out, and this, like, shows that they totally do. Like, they still totally talk to each other, and they're, like, friends.
Yeah.
And I was so happy with that scene.
Yeah. I like that scene too, but I kind of like it for a different reason, because Stan just sort of says, well, what am I supposed to do?
Yes,
and
he's very,
She's like, I can't do anything, she just wants to fight you. I do love that Stan always, like, he always kind of stands by what Wendy wants to do, and he kind of recognizes when she knows what she wants.
He's very accepting of Wendy and her choices.
Yeah. I absolutely
love that. It's such a perfect episode.
It's so good.
Yeah, perfect episode for a feminist, like, for anybody. It's like, it's such a great episode.
This episode made me a feminist.
See, whenever people say, oh, South Park is super sexist, I'm like, okay, let me show you the episode. Come on, man. It's so good.
It's like basically pretty much there's a really good episode that deflects virtually any complaint someone can make about it. So it's like they can be South Park is really fanatically right wing, just watch Margaritaville. South Park is really anti-feminist, watch Breast Cancer Show Ever. South Park is really homophobic, watch Big Gay House, Big Gay Penny Boat Ride. South Park is really transphobic, watch The Sissy.
Yeah.
It's like there's virtually always an episode that has a really good message and it's really strong and it's really fun, that pretty much deflects most of the complaints people can have about it. And I love the show for that. I think that's one of the reasons I love the show so much.
Yeah.
And I absolutely adore this episode because it's like, it's funny, it's charming, it's really, really engaging, it's really cathartic, and I love the ending scene as well, where Cartman's just like, you know, completely ignoring all the complaints against him, and everyone's just like, our opinion of you can't possibly go any lower.
Right.
It's just a perfect episode. I think I honestly don't have an issue with this episode in the slightest. I actually wish it was longer.
Right.
I want more when beating the shit.
Yeah.
I want more because this episode proves how great of a character she is. Like,
I love that bit.
List.
I love the bit where like she's just punched him and there's a still of him. It's like there's a still of him completely beating the fuck up, and then there's a still of like Santa Carl cheering, and there's still
it's like slow motion, right?
Yeah, it's so amazing because it's like it's just such an awesome episode.
Because they know that we're gonna want to bask in this moment.
And you know what's so funny? They could have easily have done it. They could have replaced breast cancer with like prostate prostate cancer or something and made it about Kyle. They could have easily, like, had Kyle fight.
Right.
But they chose Wendy, and I'm so happy that they did that. I love whenever they use Wendy. I think she's an important character in the show when she's used. She's always used right, honestly.
Yeah. The other thing is, well, except in season 20, but then again. Yeah. The other thing is with, one thing I want to say is, I feel like it's really good that with all the sort of jokes they make about breast cancer, they kind of make a lot of, like, childish, tasteless jokes, but they kind of do it in a way where they acknowledge we're not supposed to think that Cartman's in the right for saying that. They know that they're bad. They know that they're not fair to May. And they kind of make them in a way where they pretty much punish themselves for making them.
Yeah. And
it's just really mature of them to... I feel like this is a really mature season generally, in terms of dealing with, like, really tough issues like that, and sort of dealing with it in a really, clever light, and actually understanding when they're going too far.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, one more thing I noticed. I think I noticed this in an earlier episode, but I want to say, Wendy's dad is Chuck Norris.
Yeah, he does look like Chuck Norris. I was thinking that too, bro.
Yeah, it's really ironic as well, because Chuck Norris is, like, homophobic and shit. It's just...
Well, speaking of maturity, let's move on to the two-parter that has guinea pigs in costumes. Pandemic.
Aired October...
Part 1 and Part 2, The Startling.
Alright, aired October 22nd, 2008, and October 29th, 2008.
And I'm not really going to read the thing because I'm pretty sure every fan of South Park, especially like the rabid fangirls, love this episode because it focuses on everybody's favorite cynical little asshole, Craig.
Okay, so I've noticed...
I like Stan better than Craig, but yeah.
I've noticed that I think Craig is one of the most popular characters on the internet, if not the most popular South Park. I know everyone on the internet loves Craig.
Yeah, Craig is like the Gert or the Paradox of South Park.
Yeah.
He's just like one of the characters that most people that kind of watch it don't really care that much about, but the fans love.
Yeah, and I didn't really get it until then. I thought he was a cool guy, I guess, but I'm like, I don't get the love. But this episode, really watching these two episodes really sold me on Craig. I think I get the love now. He's really funny here.
Yeah, the thing is,
Craig is the only character that would work for the type of storyline that they were going because Craig is just so apathetic about everything, totally apathetic, and they've never really had a character that's just so like, okay, I'm out, except like maybe you can kind of count that whatever Christopher Reeve episode wherever, but it's the first time where he's like a character is just totally uninvested, and he's like, nope, not getting into this. Sorry, goodbye.
Yeah, Craig is such a good character.
Craig is kind of like the ultimate straight man. It's kind of like Squidward, actually, because it's like, when there's a situation where he's not convinced of what they're doing, he's always just going to stand up and say, hold on, no, this is stupid. And I feel like that's really fun to do, or fun to see on screen, because it's like, when Stan or Kyle do it, there's an element of straight manniness in it, but at the same time, you kind of know they're kind of on the ride for the show's sort of weird world. Whereas with Craig, there's that bit where he's like, you know what's unusual for most kids? What was it? You know what happens to most kids? They get detention.
Yeah. I love Craig in this episode because he, like you said, he's so like deadpan and so like straight man kind of guy, and he's so done with all their shit. And I love this scene. I both love and hate the scene where he like totally tells them off, and he's like, you know why the kids at school don't like hanging out with you guys because you're always doing this stuff.
Too, and then like this, they come just like, you're being extremely negative, right?
Yeah, and it's so funny because on one hand he is totally right. Like the boys do this shit all the time, and it's what they're known for. And it's kind of funny because like they really can't not do it. They have to do whatever Matt and Trey want them to do. And on the other hand, I kind of hate it because like the boys are like my sons, and I hate seeing them be burned like that. Like.
I think the thing with this episode is they kind of it's actually a little bit Daria-ish now I think about it, because it's like Craig is just this character who's completely uninvested in anything that's not mundane.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting to take a character like that and then implant it into South Park, which is, even though it's obviously sort of satirizing the real world, is totally different from the real world, and then kind of calling them out on the fact that they're really unrealistic. Which, let's be honest, it's a bit like SpongeBob can't hold yourself out for not being underwater. It's kind of a weird complaint, and it's kind of awkward, but it makes a lot of sense in a weird sort of way.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I like how Craig really is the highlight of Pandemic. Even to people who aren't rabid fans of Craig and everything, aren't his fangirls, because honestly, the plot of the Pandemic is just, it's so weird. It's not even weird where it's like, oh, that's stupid. It's weird. It's like, okay.
That's weird.
All right, that's interesting. Guinea pigs in Peru and pan flute band. Okay. But then you add Craig in the mix and his whole plot, and he just like makes that plot kind of shine and makes it okay for it to be so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because he's so grounded in this whole situation that he's basically representing the audience at this point.
Yeah. The other thing to mention is it's kind of funny how with the Peruvian flute bands they kind of treat international terror as being international security by basically just saying let's just get rid of all of them in this really sort of brutal way. It's like kind of I feel like it's kind of good to show that when people just want to get rid of someone, you can't just sort of say, oh, you're all disgusting, let's get rid of all of you. Because
Josh, still subtweeting America here, man.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
I'm sorry. I have a bad habit of that. But the thing is, it's kind of it's kind of interesting that they sort of show when you basically when you kind of try and get rid of people whose culture or values or whatever you don't like, you can end up recreating much greater threats and much more dangerous situations. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of interesting that they do that, and it's also quite funny the way they do that with the guinea pigs.
Yeah, and I want to bring up the other storyline in this episode, which is Randy and the family like running away from these guinea pigs.
Yeah.
And I love that story because it's them kind of mocking these handheld horror movies, and then they do a good job of it. I love Randy in this episode. He's like, "Oh my god, I'm so startled." He's so funny.
See, okay, I know that they're parroting found footage horror movies.
Yeah.
I think what they're parodying even more are annoying ass dads with their video cameras.
I do love the fact that they basically took Randy and put him in like the Blair Witch Project or Cloverfield and just
he works though.
Yeah.
I think that's funny, and that's this isn't like my favorite two-parter or anything, but it's just kind of a wild ride from start to finish, but it also keeps you grounded with Craig.
You're right. I do think Craig is like the best part of these two episodes.
Oh yeah, most
definitely
definitely
good episodes, but Craig is probably the best part. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't really got much else to say actually.
Okay, well, neither do I. So we're gonna move on to About Last Night.
Aired November 5th, 2008.
Following the 2008 U.S. presidential election, Barack Obama catches everyone off guard when he arrives at the White House prematurely. Meanwhile, the Barack Obama supporters of South Park celebrate Obama's victory, while the John McCain supporters fear the end of the world and take shelter. This episode, when watching it, I kind of felt sad because his presidency is over, and I'm sad. And now we have Angry Cheeto in the White House.
Somehow even more bastard than Jasper.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just kind of
I make too many comparisons between Jasper and Trump, actually. Make homework great again. We will build a warp and the crystal gems will pay for it.
This episode is a parody of Ocean's 11, which I've never seen, but I get the gist of it.
Yeah, I was trying to work out what it was. I thought it might be Hustle, but my brother and my dad like those sort of heist movies a lot more. But I kind of get the reference now.
Yeah, and I love the John McCain and Barack Obama, and the whole team is kind of like lovable thieves, and you're kind of actually rooting for them a little bit. And they're really, I love the whole elaborate plan. It was a good episode.
Like the Barack and Michelle and everything, not really being married, but then they end up together. Like to me, I'm like, this is just fun to watch. It's not like you don't really have to think super hard, especially with like an election and everything. You obviously have people who are bummed and people who are excited.
Yeah.
Very, very drastic change with the most recent. But
I do love how overzealous they make it, because it's like, you have, it's like, to be honest, the thing is, you could swap it round and have it be McCain winning, and then nothing would really change, because it's like, you've still got two politicians, who want to kind of not do anything that benefits anyone and just kind of, completely follow their own agenda, while simultaneously you have all the people who support the incoming president completely panicking, and all the people who want to, who oppose them just preparing for the end of the world. Wasn't there that joke in the hospital about was he a McCain supporter or an Obama supporter?
Yeah.
Because then we can figure out if the party too hard or tried to kill himself.
Right, and I love that whole joke where they're all dramatic, because they're kind of mocking people who think that the change is going to happen right away. It's either going to be great or be awful immediately, and when really neither is true.
Except for now, apparently, because it took 8 fucking days. But
I do kind of.
The world all just parodying South Park at this point.
One of the things I like is the bit where they have Palin just being a complete idiot. Then it
Yeah.
turns out she's like some kind of sake-cracking genius.
That's
like,
so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't
And the other thing
believe
is,
Ike was
the other thing
in
is-
on the heist.
Huh?
I can't believe Ike was like in on their heist at the end.
Yeah,
I totally forgot about that part.
And Kyle's like, "Oh no, really? You could really hurt your ankle." And then
that's
he
brilliant.
falls, and he's just like in the snow. Like that's just
Yeah.
fun.
And the bit where he just turns where he turns to them and he's just like, "Boom, baby."
Yeah.
Yeah, boom, baby. Like that's. I
Yeah.
think this episode's just pleasant to watch.
Yeah, it's
Like,
really
not
it's
the
a lot of
biggest,
fun.
Or it's
Yeah.
not like the most. I mean, for a political topic, it's not really that.
The other thing is, I feel like the moral's actually really sweet because it's like you have Obama sort of saying, okay, I'm going to be proactive, I'm not just going to try and do this for my own ends, and then you have McCain supporters being like politics isn't the end of the world, and then with Randy, it's a bit nasty obviously because it's Randy, but you don't really need to do it with Stanley Carl because they already knew, kind of realizing he can't do everything, he's not going to be the Messiah,
Right.
and it's really different. Can I talk briefly about how different this is from OGs? Would that be alright?
From what?
From OGs.
I don't know what that is.
The Trump episode.
What?
The Trump episode, the one after Trump.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was-
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of interesting to talk about that because it's like that's a much darker episode. Even taking out of the taking aside the storyline stuff and just talking briefly about how different this is. With this one, you kind of have this moral of politics isn't necessarily going to be the end of the world because people aren't just completely people aren't completely nuts. They're just going to sort of get over it. Whereas, because the thing is that McCain and Obama were not really as far from each other as Trump is from like any sane person in politics. Right. So it's kind of. I think the thing is they kind of treat politics in a very different way now than they ever would back at this point in the show because it's become such a sort of poisonous ball game now, even more than it was then.
Yeah, I want to make another comparison between those two episodes. Is that in the commentary they mentioned that they were going to do two versions, like a version where Barack wins and a version where McCain wins, but then they got lazy and they just did the Barack version and they didn't have a backup. And I think that's totally what happened with the OGs episode. They thought Hillary was going to win and then didn't have a backup Trump episode, and that's why they screwed themselves.
Yeah.
See, that's also another reason why I kind of look back on this episode with like pain and with love at the same time because it's like, gosh, remember the simpler times.
Yeah.
Right.
Remember when we were happy? Remember when politics wasn't making everyone want to kill themselves? Remember when politicians weren't complete arseheads?
Yeah.
I remember.
We're basically member berries watching this episode.
I know.
But I think we made enough season 20 references. Like, I need to stop.
My last thing about this episode is that I love the scene where Stan and Kyle make a noise complaint and their parents. It's so funny to me.
And the bit where Cartman just comes up and he's like stealing TVs.
Yeah.
I do love how
Where's my
Cartman. I love how Cartman is never actually that political. It's like he's obviously a douchebag who only cares about himself and is like completely unreasonable, but he doesn't actually care about politics enough to actually try and help anyone side.
Right.
Yeah.
He's kind of an architect like that, and I do kind of like that aspect.
Yeah, I think we're gonna move on to Elementary School Musical.
That's my favorite episode this season, and it aired
I love this season.
November 12th, 2008.
The boys realize they are the only kids at school who are not hit by the new High School Musical fad, making everyone in school break out in song. Okay, so I have to say something about this season, and I remembered while watching it, Matt and Trey kind of make fun of this generation, where kids are, later in the next episode, it's vampires, but they're making fun of High School Musical and all that, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm rewatching this, I'm like, this was my generation, they're talking about me. They were talking about me, because I don't care who you are, I don't care what you like now. If you were my age when High School Musical came out, if you were in my generation, you just know High School Musical.
Yeah.
You know it.
Yeah.
You
Honestly,
know at
yeah.
least one song.
I was
the movie.
I was like an 11-year-old boy. I wouldn't have seen it, but I knew what it was. I knew all the girls at my school were completely obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's such a generational thing. Like, even now we can look back and be like, yeah, it's crap, but
Right.
that.
Honestly, like, I know High School Musical is bad, but I love it. I don't care.
Oh yeah, I still love it. Like, I cannot bring myself to hate it, even though it's like kind of crappy and it has poor songs. Like, honestly, the older generations can argue so much about why it's garbage. I'll still be singing Bop to the Top until my grave.
I think one of my favorite things in this episode is the fact that it's like, it's also perfectly choreographed. All the songs that they do.
Right.
And apart from Stan Carl Kenny and Cartman, they haven't even tried to actually do any of it. They just can do it off the top of their heads. I kind of love that. It's a bit like the bit with the Nun and Blues Brothers, when I think about it.
Yeah.
Where they just sort of pop into a song completely out of nowhere.
This episode's so ironic to me, because I know it doesn't really make sense to make this critique, but I'm going to do it anyway. That I think it's kind of funny how the boys are, like, so opposed to singing and dancing when, like, they were in a movie musical. They were singing in the movie. I mean...
I love how Matt and Trey are making fun of a musical when they're...
Yeah, and they totally...
Obviously, I'm not saying High School Musical is the epitome of Broadway, which, I mean, it kind of is. But...
you're not going to see High School Musical at the West End, whereas you are going to see Book of Mormon at the West End. Probably.
Right. And I also
honestly, High School Musical, I love how they make fun of it, and I'm not even mad that they're making fun of it and saying it's garbage. I'm like, I grew up with that, and this episode is so funny to me because it's such an important part of my life and my generation. Like, that's really just a staple of our, like, High School Musical is. And later on, the next episode, which I won't get to yet because this episode.
I love the bit where the way that with I'm trying to remember the name of the Bryden. I can remember because because it reminds me of the guy who does Would I Lie to You? It's this series in the UK. But anyway, basically the thing with Bryden in his subplot for me that's quite interesting is it's kind of the inversion of what you'd expect someone to be in a musical, because someone's trying to behave in a more masculine way, but you expect them to want to behave in a in a dance troupe.
Yeah, they kind of flipped that plot on its head. Like, this time it's the theater kid who gets beat by his dad for wanting to play sports. It's really totally different than you doing movies live.
I love the gay dad.
Yeah.
I love the gay dad.
I'm guessing the gay dad is going to be Trey's character in Despicable Me 3.
Yes! Oh my gosh. See, I absolutely love that character so much. Like, I know you're not supposed to like him because he, like... I also love at the ending how it kind of, like, works out and everything when he does go to the basketball. He gets excited about doing the We Will Rock You and then, hey! And, like, crowd... Like, so it works out in, like, a cute way. It's honestly, like, they could have just left it totally unresolved, but they resolved it in that, like, precious, like, everybody kind of wins way, which I wouldn't have...
Except for the boys, because they don't win, because everyone wants to go to see basketball now.
Right.
But speaking of the boys... I love Kyle's hair. Everybody loves Kyle's hair.
Yeah, his carbon blue afro.
The thing I love is the fact that it's like it's kind of like gluten-free Ola in season 18. The fact that Stan's basically is going all this way is like ostensibly to make everyone like them again, but he basically just wants Wendy to like him again.
Right.
Yeah.
I love how he uses the boys' egos to kind of goal them into succumbing to this fad.
We've got Malkinson as well.
Yeah.
Poor Scott Malkinson.
Although
honestly, this is such a good episode that really relates to our culture.
Yeah, and my favorite line is when I don't remember who says it, but someone's like, "Where the hell have you guys been?" And Craig just goes, "Peru."
I only noticed that callback I actually only noticed that callback watching it again. And the other thing, I think there are two bits in it that I absolutely love. There's the bit where Stan's about to do the musical number and then just does Someone to the Kitchen with Dinah and goes I love Rhodey and Happy Birthday. And the other bit I really liked is the bit where Cartman just puts on the jacket and he's just like, well guys, if this is what I represent to, I'm going to go home and kill myself.
Oh, yeah. I also love the part where Social Services goes to Bryden's house. They're like, we got an anonymous complaint. His name is Stan Marsh.
The thing is, I think, to be honest, like, 11-year-old me entirely relates to Cartman, though, because I didn't get anything about High School Musical. I think
all I still a part of it. You were still a part of it.
Right.
Everybody knows
all
about
I
it.
knew was, for some reason, the girls thought it was gross when people kissed, and one of the boys looked like Mark Hamill.
Oh my god, really?
That's all I've ever known about it.
See, okay, so we've talked about this episode that parodies one big part of our culture. Let's talk about the last episode of the season that parodies another big part of our generation's culture, the Ungroundable.
Aired November 19th, 2008.
A vampire fad is spreading at South Park Elementary thanks to the movie Twilight. Butters believes that the students interested in this culture are actual vampires and become tempted to join them. Meanwhile, the goth kids are finding their style. Is becoming mistaken with the new fad and set out to stop it. So, where you said, Tim, that you weren't a part of the High School Musical like fandom and everything, I was never into the vampires. Like, I never got into it, but I mean, I was immersed in that huge fad. Like, that was everywhere.
My thing was always werewolves, not vampires.
See, here in the States,
when there was a vampire episode, when there was a werewolf episode of Doctor Who, I lost my shit.
See, here in the States, like, 6th grade, about the time I was in the 6th grade,
Twilight,
6th grade. Like, hit the shelves. It was insane. The first movies were coming out, and I automatically, even 6th grade me, knew that it was total fucking garbage. Like, and I couldn't stand it.
Oh, I have a bit of trivia for this one. I think I saw this earlier today. Apparently, Hot Topic now do Burn It Down t-shirts.
Really?
Yeah, I can't believe that, but apparently they do.
I would buy that from Hot Topic.
Yeah, same.
Oh, me too.
To me, I think the thing is, it's like, I feel like if I ever go to the States, Hot Topic is just going to be like one of those things where I know I should not go near it because it's just one of the most awful things ever created, but they lure me in with like Steven Universe stuff and South Park stuff, and I'm just like, no, I'm going to stick with Forbidden Planet. It's not complete crap.
Right.
See, no, I like Hot Topic. I still do, because it used to be like almost like Spencer's Gifts and everything. Now it's kind of evolved more into like fandom sort of stuff and everything.
Yeah.
But that's like besides the point. It's so funny. Oh my gosh, it's so funny because Matt and Trey like snatched all these 6th graders' wigs or something because they're like, we honestly like read them for shit because like that really is like the Hot Topic at that time was the most popular store ever. Everybody was like in the emo scene phase, and also we got to talk about the goth kids.
Yeah, I love any episode that revolves around the goth kids, and I really, really love them here because they're so hardcore in comparisons to like the idiotic vampire kids, and it's so obvious that there's a difference, and I love seeing them get mad because they keep getting mistaken for them.
I love it whenever they have the goth kids, even for like a split second. I think they're so funny because everybody knows a goth kid. Everybody knows a goth kid, and they're exactly like that. It's so funny.
Yeah, I think to be honest, for me, it's like every episode they've been in except Raisins, which I personally really don't like, they're really, really good in. Because it's like, there's this really funny stuff with them just like, I think my favourite part would probably be the bit where they have walked close from the gap, and then someone kicks the ball towards them, and they just like, they're over there by the fat kid, the guy with the big nose, and the guy with, the short guy, and then they're just like, oh, so we're back to that then.
Yeah.
Like this.
I think it's just a funny episode all around. I love the Butters storyline. That one scene where he jumps out of Cartman's window and everything, and he's talking to his mom. He's like, well, Butters, confused about his sexuality, tried to give me a hickey and then puked up all over my floor.
I know. I love that bit. The worst part is with all the moments like him kissing but Cartman in Tonsil trouble and the holding hands in this. No, sorry, in Super Fun Time and going along with his stupid plan in the China problem, and now this, it makes a scary amount of sense.
I can see why Cartman would think that.
It's like Butters and Cartman kind of make way too much sense as a couple. It's just that they're slightly abusive.
Butters is really funny in this episode because I love how naive he is, and then it always puts him into really hilarious situations. And I love Butters' parents like trying to figure out what to do about Butters' crazy vampire behavior. Like they don't know what to do. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's like the thing is, it's like Butters probably has the most useless parents in the entire show because they just cannot fucking parent for the life of them. Even though Butters is like the most demure, naive,
precious child.
Right.
Yeah, except I was about to say except in season 20. I've got to stop saying that. Sorry.
Yeah, this is season 12. I do love the scenes where.
But in season 12, Butters is just absolutely.
Where Butters was like, he's getting yelled at by his dad for like not alphabetizing the pantry, and his dad's like screaming at him. And it's funny because I remember being a kid and having my parents like scream at me for shit like that. It's so dumb. And I'm like.
I remember, it happens. That's another thing that Matt and Trey got about our generation. Our parents love to scream a lot.
Yeah. I think one of the other things I really like about this is I swear Butters takes the whole thing way too seriously. It's pretty ridiculously funny because it's like you know, he basically treats it like he's getting into like a whole freaking religion or something.
Right. I love how we think they're like actually
Carter, he
vampires.
goes home. Like, Carter's don't fuck around.
Right.
Actually, to be fair, Butter's kind of always like acts like it's getting. No, to be fair, most people who sort of went into Twilight fandom probably ended up like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I really enjoy this season.
Same.
Minus like the issues that I had with the China problem. I think this is a really strong season.
Yeah, it's a great season.
It's a very varied and diverse sort of season. It's not kind of one note. And honestly, I was really excited to talk about this season.
Yeah,
Me
same.
too.
I was really excited. I think the one thing I have to say is, before watching it, I thought it was like one of the best seasons, but I think it's probably one of the best seasons, up there with like season 6 and season 8 and season 11, and for me season 18 actually, 17 and 18 actually. But it's a really, really good season. But I think the thing is, it's kind of more polarizing than season 11 because the episodes don't get as good in season 11, but sometimes they also don't quite get as bad. So it's really interesting, yeah.
But yeah, thank you again, Tim, for joining us.
Yes.
We're so excited to have anybody who wants to join. And if anybody's listening and you want to like ask us questions or anything, by the way, we're going to answer the fan questions. Rachel and I will answer them next podcast. Those are like more personal ones. We'll just send them to us, please. Like,
and
questions.
Oh, can I do a shameless plug?
Yes.
If anyone wants to follow me and see endless Steven Universe, South Park, political crap, my username is Weedle Testerburger.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely follow him if you're on Tumblr. Like, we love having him on the show. So thank you guys for listening, and we will ramble some more next time.
See you in 2 weeks.
And guys, thank you so much for having me. This was really awesome to do, and you guys are really awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Tim. We love having you.
Bye.
Bye.
See you around. See you guys.